Hello and welcome to the Justin Hamilton podcast. On today's episode, it's time for a new 8 a.m. catch up with Wil Anderson. We start talking about some of the usual topics, actually, the interesting things that are starting to happen in AI. Wil went and saw a talk with a very prominent friend of his and what he learned from that. And from there, we go off in all sorts of tangents. And then there's a big discussion right at the end about Wil's thoughts on the Odyssey. He hadn't seen it yet. I have seen it plenty of times. So I was really keen to hear what he had to say. If you're watching this on video, it is incredibly entertaining because at one point, Wil's computer starts to run out of battery, and he not only manages to keep podcasting while moving, but I think it's the last third of the podcast. He is standing up, and he does not miss a beat. He's a professional. That's right. He's up in a hotel room that is nothing that he's used to recording from, and he manages to keep it all flowing. So if you've been impressed with Wil before, this is a heck of a job on his behalf. Oh, we also have a really good chat about Lano and Woodley. And so, yeah, as I said, one of those typical 8 a.m. catch-ups where we really dig into where the other one has been and thoughts and, yeah, plenty of jokes as always. So I'm looking forward to presenting this one to you today. Just a reminder that if you would like access to bonus podcasts and you would also like to support the work that is done here over at Patreon, you can find a tier that suits you. And for as little as $5 a month, you can get access to those bonus podcasts, some one-off live videos of me performing stand-up, access to cheaper tickets, or if I'm producing free tickets to shows that I'm putting on. So head over to patreon.com/Justin Hamilton and you can find a tier that suits you. But if you also like my writing, I've moved everything around. So over at Substack, you can find all sorts of pieces. You can find my ongoing memoir, which is up to chapter 10 now. So I'm pretty happy with how that's going. And the latest piece that I wrote is why the Odyssey is the movie that we all deserve at this point in time. It was written 10 days after it came out, and I love that it's stimulating debate all over the world amongst the classicists and the cinema nerds and people who just like good movies, and being able to differentiate between translations and adaptations and taking into account when someone is making a sincere effort. And yeah, I think this is exactly the type of movie that the general public deserves. It doesn't talk down to the audience, it talks up to them. And regardless of whether this is your favorite version of the Odyssey or your least favorite, people are talking about this extremely ancient text. And that is a positive in a world that is full of negativity and consistently and constantly looking for the worst in everything. Even the people who didn't like this version of the Odyssey, if they're classicists, of course they're going to have a firm view on that. My opinion is that, you know, trying to turn the classic version of it into a modern day piece would be difficult in quite a different way, especially after we've been inundated with Marvel movies where we've seen the gods, we've seen Thor, we've seen Hercules, we've seen Russell Crowe somehow channeling. He's in a Con the Fruiterer in the last Thor movie where he played Zeus. It's very hard to portray the gods and not come off as a little bit camp. And I think with this version of the Odyssey and its statement on the world that we live in today, I think Nolan made the correct choice. But once again, debate over a 2,700-year-old text is exciting, and it's been a big hit. It's knocking on the door of $1 billion at the moment, and just because something makes a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean it's good. But at least with a director like Christopher Nolan, you know there are layers to it and great ambition. So Nolan and his team behind the scenes have done an incredible job. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later. And if you'd like to read my piece, you can find that at Substack. Head over to my website, justinhamilton.com.au. You can find all the links there. And you can also sign up to my fortnightly newsletter for free. Comes out every second Tuesday at 10 a.m. So if you'd like to sign up for that, please do so. Okay, let's bring in Wil, and I'll swing by at the end to let you know what's coming up on Thursday. But I hope you enjoy this 8 a.m. catch up. Well, we started doing that classic thing where we started talking and then thought, well, we should start recording at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we were talking about AI, which is
What?
such a topic of conversation at the moment, obviously. But here's what happened to me on Thursday of last week. Our dear friend Adam Spencer, Adam Barrington Spencer, he these days, a lot of people remember that Adam and I used to do a radio show together on Triple J. But what's Adam Spencer up to these days? Well, he is a maths communicator. He has a great Substack that people can sign up to, and the free version sends you a couple of things a week. Very cool stuff from the world of science and maths, and if you like those ideas that can seem quite complicated, presented to you in a way that is accessible.
Understandable. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, not
yeah.
always understandable.
But
Sometimes you'll do
accessible.
like, can you solve this? Can you solve this math problem? And I just want to write, no.
Yeah.
You ask the question, can you? And I've given it a go. And my answer is no. No, I cannot. I cannot move these matchsticks around to come up with the highest number. I'm sorry. I tried, but I have to get on with my day. But
I've made the mistake sometimes of saying, "Hey, can you explain this concept that I'd never heard of before?" And by the end of it, I'm actually more confused than when I first started.
Well, this is probably a good example then. So, like, he was in, I've been in Brisbane the last 2 weeks doing my improvised shows. And so, thank you to everybody who's come out. It's Sunday morning when we're talking. So, my final show is actually at 5:30 this afternoon. And then I have 5 shows in Canberra. And then that, Justin, will be 137 shows of the What You Talking About Will tour, 137 different shows since I started out in January 2025. So 5 more in Canberra. It's been a delight. But yesterday, I went and saw Lano and Woodley's show, Lano and Woodley in Space, before
Mm,
I went to see my show. And it also was about AI and the idea of handmade stuff versus AI. The whole premise of the show, even though, again, I don't want to give too much away, but if people have the opportunity to see it, it's very much a show where Cole's come in with this whole idea of, we're going to make the show finally professional. I've used AI and here are the computers and here's the slickness. And Frank comes in with the whole, I've handmade everything. And
yeah.
it becomes this battle of not just the battle of Cole and Frank and their personalities trying to put together the show, but this real commentary on what AI can bring versus what like handmade can bring and how maybe they can be used together or not used together or how they're diametrically opposed to each other. And I was like, this is one of the most interesting shows about AI that I've ever seen.
Right.
And it's Lano and Woodley in space.
Yeah. And the irony is behind the scenes, Frank probably brought the AI and Colin went, no, I've done it handmade.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great bit at the end of the show where they're having an argument about who wrote each other's bits, but it's all scripted. But you
Yeah.
wrote this bit about you complaining about this bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you wrote this bit about you responding to me complaining about it. And I'm like, fuck, I love you guys.
Yeah.
You guys have been so good at comedy for so long. Like, it's just. Like there's a one moment where Cole's like, oh, how do we get here? And Frank pulls out his guitar and does a song that goes from the Big Bang up to how they got to literally the moment they got here. But it's got this great thing in the middle about how we got sick of each other for 12 years and went off in our own different directions and blah blah. It was such a great show. But everyone's talking about AI and everybody's talking about it in different ways. And so on Thursday morning, our friend Adam Spencer, who now one of the things he does is he goes around Australia and he does a keynote address to businesses about AI, about the advancements of AI. And then obviously if it's a specific industry, he will like tailor the speech to like, here is what it's going to mean for your specific industry. And so On Thursday, he was in town to give a speech to a big Queensland doctors, nurses, medical researchers, people who work in the medical field, or what the implications of AI are going to be for their industry. And that is, it's one of the industries where, you can see most of the positive upsides that we can have the conversations around what can happen in the AI space tend to be in the medical fields. And so, anyway, he said, "Do you want to have breakfast before I go and do this thing?" And so I'm like, "Yeah, great, love that." So Spencer and I go and have breakfast, good fun. And he said, "Oh, by the way, if you want to come and watch me do this keynote this afternoon, I'm sure they'll let you do it." And I'm like, "But isn't it like a big corporate function? Aren't you doing like a big, I can't just like wander in the back and just like take a seat." And he's like, yeah, you can." And I'm like, Adam and I see the world in such different ways. Like
Yeah.
even just the way we approach a moment like that, I would just never think to ask, like certainly not to promise that I could do a thing even before I'd run it by anybody.
Yeah.
But he was just like, "Nah, it'll be fine." Anyway, he was right. It was fine.
Yeah.
And so I went along. I went along and I sat in this room and watched Adam Spencer deliver a 1 hour sort of keynote presentation on AI. And firstly, here's what I'll say. It was so good.
Yeah.
If you are a company, this is not an ad for Adam Spencer, but it can be. If you are a company that needs a presentation on AI for your industry, but you want to be done, Adam said it to me at breakfast. He goes, "The way I pitch my stuff is I'm not as funny as a funny person, and I'm funnier than a really serious smart person." Like, and
Right.
it is really that gap, like where you learn so much about AI along the way, but there's heaps of like Will Smith eating spaghetti and funny videos and things to kind of like make it fun and entertaining along the way while he's. But the Smith eating spaghetti thing, when he got to that, because I remember that, like early on the early days of AI, and
Mm.
the way that AI has advanced in the last 2 or 3 years through each generation as it comes, there was a moment, Justin, where I was sitting in this serious medical research room of people with their lanyards on, dressed up in their finest business clothes, to go to a conference, and me in my tracksuit pants and hoodie slumped in the corner just weeping. So I was like, "Oh no, we're all ruined.
Yeah.
This is horrible."
Who brought that homeless man in there who's
It's
crying?
like, why is Adam Hills crying in the corner in this speech? This makes no sense.
Well, it's hard to keep up with all those AI bands on Spotify for Spicks and Specs.
Oh man. Yeah, right. So are you having conversations around, I mean, is all the conversations you're having around AI at the moment?
Me?
Yeah.
No, but the majority of people that I talk to are either completely disengaged with it or they see it as something that's really good.
Yeah, it does feel one or the other. There doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a lot of middle ground.
No.
Certainly in Lano and Woodley's show. And look, the show's always set up to um, favor Frank. In
Yes.
fact, to the point where there was an audience member last night where I was like, "You guys have done this so convincingly. You've convinced an audience member that honestly, like that Frank and Colin have a bad relationship and that Colin's being mad to Frank."
Yeah.
They were defending Frank in a level where you're like, they're both in on this. They're doing
Yeah.
another one of these in 2 hours. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, yeah, they're going to be okay. I had drinks with Colin at the Adelaide Fringe this year, and he was saying to Tom Gleeson and me, he said, "I know that Frank's more popular, but I am very important to the audience to tell Frank to shut up sometimes."
But also, Frank is popular because of Colin.
Yeah, it's the Dean Martin Jerry Lewis thing. Like it's the
It's
keeping the straight
actually
line.
amazing to watch
Yeah,
because it's hard, so much harder for Frank to do what Frank does best, which is incredible physical silly buggers
mm.
without there being someone to annoy. It's
Yeah,
funny because it's annoying. The
yeah,
way he sidles up to Cole, gets into him, like mucks about, whatever it is, you need Frank by himself is great to watch. Like we all love
yeah,
watching Frank just do his own things. But it misses, the act doesn't work unless he has something to push up against or something that is reacting to his silly buggers. They are so good to watch together. It is so comforting. And also, what's, I mean, I'm sure there is, but who's doing stuff like that
yeah, yeah.
at the moment?
it's a
Like
bit of
is
a lost art, and like Colin gives Frank the boundaries to push up against, and
yes.
I think as my guess, I'm not saying this is correct, but my guess is that as uh, the world became more expensive and comedy continued to pay exactly what it paid 25 years ago, on the live circuit.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive to be in a duo or a trio when you're having to take what you earn and halve it or third it.
I think we've lost one of the really, well, not maybe not lost, because there are still people working in duos or trios, but there are fewer and fewer of them.
Yeah.
And it reminded me just that idea of like that Doug Anthony All Stars style. Here are the characters, and here are
Mm.
the characters on stage interacting with each other in this like way that like we're constantly shifting power dynamics. And to watch Colin Frank do it, who are the best who have done it in Australia by far. I mean,
Mm.
you look at Frank and I mean, I know clowning is so popular and so hot in the world of comedy now. Like it's quite cool to like have clowning skills. And
Mm.
it is quite impressive in a lot of ways to have clowning
Yeah.
skills. But you watch Frank Woodley and you're just like, oh, I mean, this guy like is as the funniest clown and the most physically funny. Like he's in control of every movement that he
Mm.
does on stage all night long. It's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and they started off in a trio, right?
Mm.
And uh, already had those kind of skills, and then being able to define too. I wonder also, we're getting further and further away from vaudeville, and
Yeah.
so that influence has dissipated over time, even on a subconscious level.
I mean, a lot of it is definitely vaudevillian,
Yeah.
wordplay. I mean, a lot of Lano and Woodley stuff has always been, and there are like three set pieces in this show that are very much like a variation on who's on first.
Mhm.
It's their
Yeah.
version of a who's on first. It is
Yeah.
a confusing wordplay that becomes a more confusing wordplay, and people don't know what's going on. But it's brilliant to watch when people are doing that so well. Like it's
Mm.
like watching like almost yes this traditional ancient art form of comedy but modernized and reimagined and reinvented and just that dynamic of somebody even being not that Cole is a straight man by any means in
No,
that show.
he
Like
he's
he
got
is
heaps of
super
jokes.
funny
Yeah.
all the time. And but he's funny is the funny of the frustrated person trying to like keep things on the straight and narrow or get things right or being constantly frustrated by what Frank silly buggers or whatever else is going on. But it's very comedic.
Mm.
You just, I think, have to have a finer appreciation. I think this is one of those classic things where if you go to one comedy show a year, you go and see Lano and Woodley, you go, Frank Woodley's really funny. And like, yeah, Colin Lane's fine, right? Whatever. And if you like have seen any more than like a few comedy shows and you understand comedy, you go, this show, Colin is maybe more important to this show than Frank.
Yeah, it's like once again getting back to the Dean Martin Jerry Lewis
Mm.
dynamic. When you were a kid, you loved Jerry Lewis, and when
Yeah.
you got older, you went, "Wait a minute, I think Dean Martin's my favorite," and that's what they complement each other so well. Because once again, Colin gives Frank the boundaries to push up against, and then Frank takes the edge off Colin's acerbic nature.
Yes, but also I think allows not even just takes the edge of it, allows Colin permission to
Yeah,
be a much more acerbic character,
yeah.
like so that comedically he can ramp that up in a way that if he were doing that by himself, he'd be like,
Well, I remember Colin once saying that his kids hated when they were younger, hated going to dinner
yeah.
with him because they'd say, "Why are you always being so sarcastic to the staff?" He's like, "I'm just talking." Did I ever tell you I one of my favourite moments with Frank and Colin was I saw them at the Sydney Opera House, and in their show they kind of did like a few bars of 99 bottles of beer on the wall, and it made me laugh so hard that afterwards I said that I would pay them to record all 99 lyrics, and each week I would cut it down into, I wonder what they did the 87 bottles last week. I wonder what bottle it's going to be this week. And then I'd play that 25 seconds and it would be, and I would just do that for 99 episodes. And one of my favorite moments ever is having Frank Woodley and Colin Lane look at me as if to say, what? They just went, they were like, how does this work? I'm like, oh, I've bamboozled both of them. This is great.
I love the inventiveness of what it is that they do. But there was also a moment that I like loved yesterday because I went backstage to have a chat to them afterwards, and Cole
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you know, you saw the loosest one of the whole run," and then immediately in that very Colin Lane sort of way was like, "And of course now I've done the performer thing of telling another performer that this one was the worst one of the."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Hi, Cole.
Yeah.
I like the show. I liked it a lot." But one of the things that I liked and we were talking about was he goes, because there was a moment in the show, they do this incredible, so they're in a spaceship and it's basically 3 bars of lights, right? Set up. And so meant to kind of indicate doors. So there's like a green light, red light. It's very hard for me to explain, but just imagine 3 standing bars of lights. And
Yep.
it becomes this bit where essentially it leads to a whole physical comedy bit where the doors are shutting and closing and Frank's running into doors and out of doors. And, you know, it's great. It's such a brilliant set piece. It's like one of those things where you're just like, well, this is, if you did this on America's Got Talent, you would win the series. You know, it's just like one
Yeah.
of those funny set piece comedy things. But it was clearly looser than usual, even. And at the start of it, one of the lights wasn't working. And once you see the thing, you're like, oh, it, it needs, all these need to be working perfectly for this thing. And there's a moment in it where they're like taking a bit longer in the dark, and Frank's just like, everyone's wondering right now, is this just like part of the show, or is this like blah blah blah? And I've got to tell you, and then they come out and they start just telling jokes like off the internet, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this is really funny. And then afterwards, they're like, yeah, that we definitely had a technical problem, and we were
Yeah.
just filling in time. And I was just like, the great thing is though that's what AI, to go full circle back to it, could rob us of, is
Mm.
those moments of inspired mistakes. In fact, I think that seeing a mistake or seeing something go wrong, and it's even something I've been thinking about on the nights when I'm in my improv show and, you know, a conversation goes in a direction that I don't expect, or I get an answer that I don't want, or somebody is answering in a way that isn't what I would have wanted, or the show's got a very different vibe to the night before and I need to get my head around it, is that idea of going, yes, but the mistakes are the point. The
Yeah.
fact that this isn't perfect is great and wonderful, and I appreciate it. I do wonder if, and maybe this is like too weird a thought, but is we've been kind of trapped by this idea that we need to be striving as humans to be perfect at things, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that we would be disappointed if we can't get something completely right. But
Yeah.
is there a possibility on a philosophical level that now that we will have the capacity to make something perfect, you know, quotation marks, you know, that we as humans will actually appreciate mistakes more and reality more and be less like, you know, from our human performances. They might actually be things that we crave more, not less.
Well, also, it is something that we crave. Like it's, you know, it's, I think I've said to you before, the world's never been hotter and I've never been less turned on. And it's,
Yeah.
you know, like I love seeing someone who has like a,
Oh, true.
you know, a blemish
Yeah.
or something like a gap in their teeth or just something so normal that you go,
Yeah.
oh, that's really hot. I also think it breeds this this weird disengagement because as soon as there is a mild fault in something, there's someone going, "Oh, did you notice that that was a little bit incorrect?" And it's like, I always think about one of the greatest movies ever made is The Godfather.
Right.
It is unimpeachable. But there is literally a scene where James Caan's character, Sonny, goes to beat up his brother in law, and the camera shot is taken from a fair way back, and he takes a swing and misses him by about 3 meters, and the brother in law goes flying to the ground. And who gives a shit? Like, it is still a brilliant movie. And you know what I don't need is to see James Caan moved by CGI 3 meters over to connect the punch. I don't need that. And I think, you know, it's things like Star Wars and that the changing of
Because
things.
we already know, by the way, It's not a documentary.
It's not a documentary. It's fine. And when they made The Godfather, it wasn't made to be watched obsessively on your big flat screen TV with your Blu-ray in HD. It was
No.
meant to be seen at the cinema, and if you really liked it, you maybe saw it twice. And if you're insane like me, you would have gone 11 times. But
But isn't even that the point, like, also of going, if you're watching The Godfather,
yeah,
you are not watching a movie that was released yesterday.
no,
Shouldn't look like Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, right? It
right,
should look like something that was from a different time. So
yes,
that you're like, hey, here is this movie that was made in this different time. In fact, it's part of the way we can view things historically as documents of the time. There
mm.
might be some language in this or some ideas in this or whatever that we these days, or there might be somebody in this that we've later found out is a terrible person. In
There's
fact,
a
you know what?
the odds are
There's
high.
yeah, I was going to say there's a 99%
Yeah.
probability that at least one of these people was a terrible person. Also, this is The Godfather, so technically, they're all terrible
All
people as
terrible.
well.
Yeah, exactly. And for anyone who's having trouble wanting to watch Jared Leto in a film, let me just remind you,
Oh,
Edward Norton smashes his face in Fight Club, so you can still enjoy him in that.
that's the one.
That's the one.
Suddenly, Fight Club's less problematic again.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
real
it's
journey in
back.
that movie.
Yeah. But it's this desire for perfection. For people know that I work on The Chase, and we've got the
Yes.
governess out from the UK, and
Is
I
the governess the biggest chase star in the world?
like she must be like she's definitely on the top shelf.
Yeah.
Like people, and she's interestingly, we've been getting a lot of feedback for this season that they find her funnier in the Australian version because there's more constraints on the UK version.
Yes.
Whereas I've turned her into a serial killer on this show, and she's always got body parts, and she's always covering up murders, and and
Yeah,
she
which
loves
is
it.
fun because
It's
it's
fun.
comedic
Yes, and she's a character,
and people know that it's not true.
it's not true,
Yes.
And I wrote a line for the other day. We had a guy on who talked about how he works in a zoo and a lion pissed on him once. And essentially, the line was her coming out and being furious for telling Larry that story because we all know how desperate he is to go viral. And then she was to look at Larry and say, and before you ask, no. And, and when she went out, she just kind of fluffed a little bit of the line in the middle and then
Mm,
afterwards was like, oh, sorry about that, do you want me to re-record it? And I said no, because it felt like the fluffing of the line meant
yeah.
it wasn't slick. It meant it looked like she was thinking it through in the moment, and I personally felt like it hit harder.
Well, also just the idea that there is the occasional mistake, and sometimes it's
Mm.
built into the system, right? The juggler who drops a couple
Yes.
of balls first
Yeah,
to
and you
kind of
get the
raise the
tension.
stakes
Yeah.
of what's going on, right? But I do think that the occasional flubbed line, we do it quite a lot of the time on Gruen, which is that if the meaning was across, or if I just like, if I picked up something on the way, like if I say that sentence like that, we just leave it because
Mm.
that's how people speak.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think we see it in TV, we hear it in podcasts as well. People edit things down to radio. Like my friend had the radio on. I have not listened to commercial radio in a long time, hence why I look so much younger. And it was you could hear how edited down. Like there wasn't even a breath between the lines, and it just provides this kind of surface slickness that sounds other.
I am hopeful that being human and sounding human and finding the mistakes and the errors and the weird things that happen and the quirks and the things that are unpredictable, there might be more value in that. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just searching more of those things out myself.
Well, there does seem to be a movement amongst the younger generations who are absolutely rejecting AI, and especially in the creative industries. They'd rather make things that are more practical, that are more lived in. We've seen two of the biggest uh, uh, movie successes this year, and Obsession and Backrooms, are all practical. There's no AI going on in either of them, and they've resonated with younger people. And also, those younger generations, they can pick AI better than the older generations. They can pick it immediately. So there does seem to be a level of pushback. Also, the billionaires want the creative side of life to be accessible to everyone. And they say it in a way that it sounds like they're doing everyone a favor. But part of being a creative is learning your craft and stumbling and then getting things right and then building on what you got right. I'd hate to use the term the journey, but it is about the building of your approach to art and then being able to express yourself. So then just flattening it so anyone can just type something in is kind of missing the point.
Well, also, Adam in his keynote address was talking about the idea. He ran through a few studies that have shown how quickly people's brains stop working if we don't use them. And
Yes.
so the idea that you can actually create, like you create something yourself of your own imagination, if you are not actively using and training your imagination, I'm not sure that we will actually have the creativity to be able to create something even with the use of AI if we're not still training our brains to be human. I mean, even in Adam's like speech, he showed because they made a fully AI movie this year, like a 90-minute AI movie, and he showed some of it, and it looks pretty good. Like for a slick sort of like if, as he says, it looks like the Transformers movie.
Mm.
It doesn't look like a good movie, but if
It
you were
looks
to
like a
like
Transformers movie.
but if you were going to watch like, the Transformers on a plane, you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily know that it was any different to this AI movie that had been made. But it was interesting to me that in the trailer that he showed of it, and it did look slick, kind of video game slick more than
Mm.
like a movie slick, but it did look very smooth and very slick, and it was very impressive, that they had sort of done this thing. It was really interesting to me that one of the jokes, even in the trailer, was a fart joke. And I was like, isn't that interesting that yet you've made this AI thing and yet, like, I mean, computers don't fart. Like, there's no, it's such a human, it's almost like the most, like, and this is not my area and I hate kind of even talking about this sort of stuff, but I was
I'm
like,
really proud of you at the moment.
yeah, but I think it's like really interesting that they
Yeah.
were still like, yeah, but this still has to be human. Like the
Yeah.
computer, or maybe they've just put a prompt into AI and go, what do you associate with humans the most? And the
They
computer's
went.
just gone, farts,
Oh
you
yeah.
all stink. You all stink, and we're going to kill you the moment we have a chance. You stinking fartiers.
Yeah. And they've decided, well, we'll put that in the trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's uh, there's these generation of kids who aren't being taught literacy, who can't read something like three paragraphs of something, and then okay, tell me what you just read, and they can't summarize it.
No.
And they, something that doesn't work in that we've noticed young people in the chase that they don't get idioms and things like that because that part of the language is dissipating and they're not engaging with it. So, there is a distinct possibility that we are about to see the first generation of kids, not through their fault, but through the lack of education and the homogenization of art, actually not be smarter than the next generation.
Well, part of the problem is, yeah, so one of the examples that Adam gave, not to give away his whole keynote address,
That's right.
but
Well, he's
there's
rewriting it all the time because it's always advancing so quickly. So
it has to be rewritten constantly. So
constantly, yeah.
this was a recent study that was in the news anyway, which was there was like I think a professor from one of the big colleges. Let's say it was Harvard, but it might not have been Harvard. But that style of thing, who did this like has this course normally has 30 people. Said this year you can do it from home. Don't have to come in for the exams. You can do it from home. An extra like 30 people, let's say, signed up for the course and usually did just based on that alone, and then the marks for the course for the on the first exam that you're allowed to sit at home through the roof.
Mm.
Absolutely through the roof. Better results than they've had in previous years, through the roof. So far through the roof that he's like, you know what? Maybe we should have this second exam in person, right? And the thing is, he'd set the exam harder the first time because people were doing it from home and he knew they'd have access to, being able to work from home or whatever. Like he'd actually set a harder exam than he usually had for the first one, but it
Mm.
was like so many good results. So he's like, all right, second one. 18 people drop out immediately when they hear
No, I'm not going to that.
two of the people, I think, or two or three of the people who got 100 on the first test end up getting zero on the second
Wow.
test.
Wow. Well, it still averages out to 50.
And that is, to me, I'm like, well, then what is the point of education?
Yeah.
I guess if the point of education is to get the qualification, but you don't understand any of the things that you learnt, then what is the point of it?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I
everyone's
don't mean what is the point of educational institutions. I mean,
no.
what is the point of it for you?
Yeah. Well, I think we get to a point where maybe in the world where everything's too results based,
Mm.
rather than the building of it.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like sometimes,
It's
isn't it?
awards in comedy, right? Like it's almost that thing of going, people feel bad if they don't win the award at the end of the season, where you might have had like, you're like, you had this great season, you wrote a
Yeah.
show you liked, everyone
Yeah.
really liked it, you didn't get nominated for award and you feel like a failure. Like
Yeah.
it's like we talk about education, like, yeah, first in your class or get this or blah, 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 as opposed to here are a whole bunch of things that you get the opportunity to learn and we're going to teach you those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so it's even the same. It's the same in
My marks
sport.
weren't great, but I know everything, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's even the same in sport where it's some of my favorite teams or players in individual sports are the ones who didn't win
Right.
anything. But they were entertaining and they did their best, and for whatever reason they just tripped at the final hurdle, or they didn't even make the final of something. But the the time you spent with them while they were trying to achieve that was so entertaining and so inspiring. There's like, but now it's just kind of like trophy culture or ring culture.
How many teams are there in the NBA?
At the moment, there's 30.
Yeah. Okay, so that means every year 29 are
Yeah,
losers, right?
yeah,
And yet you're dedicating your life to this thing.
yeah,
So there's got to be more to it than just, firstly, the people can't win if there isn't someone to lose.
yes.
I talk about this all the time. Lee Matthews is the greatest AFL player who ever played the game, and he is also one of the greatest coaches who has ever played the game. Famously, the big famous story about Lee Matthews is after that he had coached Brisbane to their second or third premiership. He was in the elevator with the boys, and some of them were like, "Where would you be without us, Lee?" And he was like, "Only the greatest player of the last century."
Great.
Like,
That's just great.
but I remember seeing Lee Matthews once, like, and it was grand final day, and he was walking to the MCG, and I said to him, we were just having a little chat, and I said, "Who do you think's going to win today, Lee?" Thinking, this is the wisest man in AFL football. He's going to be the one who'll be able to tell me one way or the other, who's going to win today. And he said, "I don't know. That's why we play the game." And I was just like,
Where it's really,
and I
really
was like,
simple.
that was, to me, that's the point.
Mm.
We play the game. You buy your ticket in the lottery. You show up. You have a go. Like, it's never going to. By the way, it doesn't matter how much you win. It doesn't prevent you from, dying or getting sick or losing your loved ones or like whatever else is going to happen in your life. Like, there's no amount of trophies that protects you from any of those things either. Like, this idea that I think we sometimes don't celebrate the idea that people are just having a crack. I think a lot of
Yes.
the time we do too. Like, I'm not saying this, we're a society without that celebration. I see a lot of people, celebrating the idea of having a crack. My dad, who still time keeps for Hayfield Football Club, he's 83 years old.
Amazing.
Every week he still time keeps for the footy. It's a real passion of his. It gives him some purpose in his life. but they care about who wins the North Gippsland Football League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and the stakes of, I mean, yes, it's about a prize as well, but the prize isn't the AFL Premiership. The prize is the idea that on the weekend, some guys in your community get together and everyone comes into town and you watch people play. You know, that to me, there is still that spirit, out there. It's important, but yeah.
Yeah, but you know that like some of my favorite Australian tennis players never won a Grand Slam, like
Yeah.
Wally Masur, Richard Fromberg. I loved, like I remember Mark Woodford had a lot of success in the doubles and was a great singles player, but never won a Grand Slam. But one of my favorite ever matches was John McEnroe playing Mark Woodford for the first time, and his hero growing up was Rod Laver, and he freaked out opposite the net, an Aussie redhead left-handed tennis player who reminded him of Rod Laver, and it did his head in, and Mark Woodford won. And McEnroe talked about that afterwards. Now that's just a random match, but that to me is one of my favourite tennis games that I ever saw.
Well, I think that's the other thing as well, right?
Yeah.
We've become so results focused at the expense of just the enjoyment of the moment of being, I guess it's that mindfulness thing of, right, like be here right now, which is that idea of this is fun. Well,
Mm.
this is a tennis. Come on, guys. Let's just think about it for a second. Like it's two guys or women on each side of a net bashing a ball at each other.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. What are we doing? But
Yeah.
we've decided it's important and these people have become highly skilled at it. But then there are these moments of imperfection that make it so interesting. The idea that Marcus Bontempelli might never win the Brownlow used to be a thing that he's been the best footballer of the last 10 years, without a doubt, and probably the greatest Bulldog that has ever played the game. And the fact that there have been many Bulldogs Brownlow medalists over the years, and that probably our greatest ever player may never win the Brownlow medal,
Yeah.
to me, used to be a thing, which is for the best player in the AFL, used to be a thing that I was like, oh, it'd be disappointing if he's come second a couple of times and like, but then, okay, but also it doesn't take away from him being this magnificent footballer that he's been for 250 games. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not, in fact, in another way, like Lee Matthews is the greatest player of the last century and he never won the Brownlow.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be part of the story.
Yeah, and it's an interesting part of the story. There was that period of Australian cricket where we dominated. Beginning with Alan Border kind of building the team up and Steve Waugh, etc. But two of my favourite series was the one that we lost to India 2-1 and the one that we lost to England 2-1, because those series were full of character and full of moments and full of chutzpah and going against what you expected, and then also sometimes seeing a player that you love on a team that's not winning still striving like that. That series that we lost to England for me solidifies my love of Shane Warne, because as everything was falling apart around him, he was incredible. And then if anyone remembers that, when we had to kind of draw the last test to win the last test to draw the series, Shane Warne, who had been impeccable for the whole series and had held that team together and was brilliant in the slips, dropped a really important catch that probably possibly cost us that game. And that kind of makes me love him more.
I mean, that's why, like sport often, I think for people who don't watch sport at its best can be that thing of just going, yeah, look at that. This is someone who's as good as he could possibly be at what he does, which is like, playing cricket and having sex with randoms.
Yeah.
And he's done both
Warney.
of those.
Yeah. Kept Telstra shares up for a long time.
But yeah, that imperfection, I guess that's that idea of, so often when you're young, you will say things like, I'm a perfectionist, or people will be like, oh, this has got to be perfect. Or we will judge ourselves by the standard of, I did not do this perfectly. And yet, A, it's so rare that things are perfect. B, when things are perfect, sometimes they are not actually that satisfying.
No,
The
not at
idea
all.
of something being perfect makes it loses some of the charm of what it means to be human.
Yeah, there's kind of no depth to it. It's not entertaining. It's something can be smoothed down to such an extent. there's no way for you to grip it and hold on to why you wanted to engage with it in the first place. One of my favorite David Bowie song, Life on Mars, if you listen really closely, right at the very end of the recording, you can hear a landline phone start ringing and you can hear Mick Ronson go, oh, fuck. Like it's in this big grandiose song. You can just hear that right at the end. And that to me is part of what makes that song perfect.
Oh, there's a lot of David Bowie in Lano and Woodley show. I should mention that as well
That's
because
good.
they're going to Mars.
Oh, right.
The plan, Cole wants to be the first man to walk on Mars.
Oh, right. Great.
And so it's very good. But I do like that idea of the celebration of imperfection. The
Mm,
idea that, maybe you don't always get what you want, but you can enjoy what you got regardless.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about this, but some of my favorite shows that I ever created are the ones that didn't do as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I know what my intention was, and I know how hard I worked on it, and I got something out of it. But I'm sure there were. Oh, I know that there were audience members or reviewers who were like, "Nah," but I knew that I was out of my comfort zone, and I was trying and aiming for something that may have exceeded my grasp, but it was thrilling for me to do so.
Oh, I mean, I feel like I live in this world all the time. I mean, I have an actual example of the most successful thing that I have ever done is the thing that I am in a way least interested in. Like I
Yeah,
mean, Gruen's been on for 19
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah,
We've had a year this year where we have been the number one entertainment show at the ABC, like in our 19th year, right? Like, it's a super successful show. And at the same time, I'm doing these unfilmed, tiny little, like, improvised shows.
yeah.
And yet, if you asked me, so one's being seen by millions of people and one's been seen by like, at
Thousands.
best a couple. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. But like night to night, hundreds, like small
Yeah,
amounts of
yeah,
hundreds, like,
yeah.
small crowds of people.
Yes.
And yet, if I told you which of those two things is the most interesting thing that I do and the thing that I find, like, I mean, it's definitely the improvised shows.
Yeah.
I think each one of those, even on the worst night, the improvised show is more interesting than an episode of Gruen. But there's the world. That's not what the world thinks.
No.
The
No.
world likes Gruen a lot more than it supports the other stuff that I do. And so I'm wrong.
Right. Well, you're wrong depending
Well, I'm
on
wrong to that. Yeah.
to them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, um, the I'll speak broadly about this because it was only just filmed the other day. But we had filming one of the episodes of The Chase, we had the chaser was in fine form and just kept knocking out player after player. And like one of the players was really good, kind of got 22,000 in the cash builder, and then the chaser just wiped them out in the multiple choice. And it came down to this one young girl who had taken the low offer. So she was back at the table by herself with $1,000 up against the chaser. And then in the final chase, only got 6 questions right. So we do this thing called firepower where we will take some of your money, but we'll give you extra steps to make it a bit more of a game.
Mhm.
We took a big chunk of that money to give them extra steps. And in the end, somehow the contestant won. And it was so amazing because the chaser would get a question wrong and then Larry throws it to the contestant, and the contestant would be like, I don't know, basketball. And Larry would be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And and that this person jagged so many questions less like I don't know, scorpion. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
got right down to the end when they were quite clearly going to win. There was 2 seconds to go. The chaser got another question wrong because sometimes as a chaser you just get questions that you don't know, you just don't know the answer. And this person just went, oh, volleyball. And the chaser burst out laughing. Larry burst out laughing. The crew burst out laughing. Everyone started clapping and cheering because it was against the grain and it was pure
Yeah.
fluke. And even when and chasers, like they want to win, of course they want to win. This chaser was just laughing all the way back to their room, just saying
I
that
mean,
was
it's
amazing.
funny. It's
It's
just
funny.
funny, like that somebody just flukes a couple of answers.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And Larry's response would just be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me, like I've made nearly 750 episodes of The Chase now.
Wow.
And you know what? I'll remember that one. I'm going to remember that one more than the ones that have been slicker and smoother. And, that one in particular was just so out of the ordinary and couldn't follow a script and was just its own unique beast. And I'll remember that forever.
Okay, so let's move on then to okay. Well, actually, I've seen two movies in the last week.
Oh,
One
good
of
effort.
one of which, yeah, I know. Being
Well,
on
sorry,
tour.
I wasn't being sarcastic
No,
with
no,
that.
no,
No, no, I
no.
just know you don't get to the movies
I don't
often.
get to the movies a lot,
Yeah.
and like I know that is. I've been to the movies fewer times in a week to see two movies than you would go to the movies in a week to see the same movie. So I do understand. But one of those was the same movie. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But I also went after I went and saw the Odyssey. We'll circle back to the Odyssey. But I enjoyed that experience so much that I was
I
like,
haven't
you know
seen
what?
it yet. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah. What else did you see?
You ought to see it. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Hang on. I'm going to write that down as the title.
Well, a movie that you probably haven't seen,
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine, but
Did you see
maybe
it?
you would be interested in seeing
Okay.
is the new Spider-Man movie.
Oh, I'm seeing it today.
Okay, I
Yep.
think you'll like it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I won't like give away too much then, but it's my favorite of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So, I don't think this isn't spoiling for anyone who hasn't seen it because I haven't seen it, but I get
Mm.
the impression it's kind of getting back to a little bit more of what makes the character so likable, which is more street level and less multiversal.
Well, yeah, definitely less. I mean, it's a pretty much a self-contained story.
Great, because
Yeah.
that's what this is what these
Yeah.
movies need now.
Yeah. I mean, it's introduced. I think, people have heard by now. If you have, I won't say what it is, but people might have heard it introduces
Yeah,
a major character
yeah,
that will obviously be used in ongoing things, but they don't just cameo that character. That character is integral to the plot.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I'm a Tom Holland fan. I'm a Zendaya fan. I'm a John Bernthal fan. I love Bernthal. I love Bernthal so much.
It's
Uh,
fun. It's good. You know what I like is because I don't know what the reaction to this is. And this is the lovely world that I live in now, where I don't need to know what the reaction to this is. People might
yeah,
hate this or love this. I don't care. I really liked it.
yeah,
And
great.
what I liked was that the Punisher in this is a Spider-Man. The Punisher in this suits the style of this movie. Do you know
Great.
what I mean? Like I could imagine people who are Punisher fans might be like, "Oh, come on, why's like Spider-Man being so chummy with the Punisher?" Because
Yeah,
it works for this movie.
yeah,
We
yeah.
need
That's fine.
we need this to happen
Yeah,
for this movie to be as fun as this movie is being. And you know that I love a Hulk. Like I think Hulk is, you know, I've always been of the opinion that Hulk is should be in every Marvel movie, but it's just a cameo character. Like, you don't
yes,
need a whole Hulk movie. You just need Hulk in various forms. And I love, again, this is a very much a Hulk for the occasion. You get a
yeah,
Bruce Banner and a Hulk for the occasion,
yeah.
which I
Great,
like. Yeah.
great. Yeah. I've always more appreciated the character of the Hulk as a foil.
Yeah, totally. But
Yeah.
also in this movie, there is, I don't know, I think that it's I want to speak quite generally about it, but Tom Holland is great. And the
Mm.
idea of an aging Spider-Man and him dealing with that is great, and dealing with the consequences of decisions that have been made in previous movies is really fantastic. But yes, that idea of like because we know how lovely a couple Tom Holland and Zendaya are in real life, there is a storyline in this where they where one of them doesn't know the other one of them. I
Yeah.
don't think I'm giving too much
No,
away.
that's how the
Uh,
last film finished.
yeah, exactly, right? So she doesn't know who he is. He still knows who she is, right?
Yeah.
So it adds to, I think, because they have clearly like such a love for each other in real life. The idea that one of them is just pretending not to even like know who the other one, and you can genuinely, you're just like, oh, this really actually does hurt him. Like,
Yeah. Tom Holland's not acting. This is the worst thing he could ever imagine.
do you reckon back in the day, 30 years ago, when we were doing stand up with Tom Holland's dad,
Yeah.
we ever thought, by the way, your son will probably be the most famous person on the planet in the year 2026?
Have you seen that joke that his dad does about how people say, you've got what, three sons and you must have a favorite? He says, yeah, the one
Yeah,
that's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
But yeah, getting back back in the day, on a very just kind of simple level, the joy of Spider-Man and the Hulk being together is Spider-Man is the outsider kid who comes from no money, who even when he does his best, still doesn't get any respect, and the Hulk is someone who can't control his temper and cracks the shits and fucking smashes everything. And you put those two together, and they really complement each other.
Yeah, there's they are well, this is what I felt like this movie was. It was a lot of Spider-Man interacting with other characters, each in their own unique ways.
Mm,
And Tom Holland, I think, is so great at being able to do that and bring
yeah.
that sort of Spider-Man charm to those situations. I mean, there's a anyway, it'll be interesting to see how you feel about there's a Black Widow scene with what's the name of
Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh, who I think is actually fantastic, and I've seen her in heaps of things where I'm
Yeah,
just like,
I'm a
great.
big fan.
The the initial scene that she's in, I found like I don't know, there was something about the pacing or something. Or it's a bit weird. Like
Right.
I didn't love it. There's a bit later on in the movie where she's much better. It just wasn't for me. But there's a lot of funny bits of like they're in a hot tub sort of situation together, and he's just like she makes him take off all his clothes, but he keeps his mask on and like
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
that's
that. Where
funny.
you're just
That's
like,
yeah.
there's lots of real fun. Here's him with like Black Widow. Here's him with
Yeah.
Hulk. Here's him with these other two villains. Here's him with this other character, and you get
Yeah.
just a lot of that fun vibe. I think. Anyway, like I won't. Like, you're going to see it. I'm interested to see what you think, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it, and I've enjoyed all of those movies. But they kind of, if I was to give them a mild criticism, is that he was, it was all a little bit high tech, and I prefer it when he's struggling and having to find ways to overcome those struggles.
Yeah, well, he's definitely struggling in
Yeah,
this, and I think you'll like it. I just think the pace, anyway, whatever. Like
yeah,
I really liked it. I thought the pacing was great. I enjoyed, like, I'm like you. I've enjoyed all of these Spider-Man movies, but the last one just felt like almost that jump the shark moment with everybody else, with all the other Spider-Men coming back, and then
I'll be
like
honest.
when,
The idea of it, like
yeah,
the idea of the movie was too big, and the thing that made it work is all of those actors are really good.
they were all so fantastic,
Yeah,
and the problem was that the movie like knew what it was doing too much. Like
yeah,
so that like there's moments when you watch it back where literally they arrive on screen and there is a pause in the movie for people to applaud in the cinema.
yeah. It's
You know,
yeah,
when you watch it at home yourself on your TV, you're like, oh, I don't need this pause. This is
yeah,
weird. Why is he
yeah.
just standing there like he's like a stage actor who's just made his entrance and is waiting for everybody to
Right,
clap, right?
and all three of them turn up like they're Fonzie turning up on Happy Days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Kramer's just come in. Everyone's applauding,
yeah, yeah.
and you have to pause before you do your line.
Yeah, I tell you what though, that movie has one of my favorite scenes in any Marvel movie, and it's because I think Andrew Garfield is one of the best actors around. Where if you saw his Spider-Man films, you know that he failed to save Gwen Stacy, and there's a moment where he saves Tom Holland's MJ, and the way he looks at her, it's like it's such it. The level of acting he brings to that scene is so much greater than the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that sometimes you just find you're like, oh, you're in a different movie. So
Yeah,
good on you.
you're way too good.
Well, speaking of different movies, yes, you. How many times have you seen the Odyssey so far now?
Well, I was meant to see Spider-Man last night, but my friend
Uh,
hadn't seen the Odyssey, so I saw it 70 millimeters and I hadn't seen it for like 8 days, and it
okay.
was God. It just made me think, what have I been doing for these 8 days? I've seen it 7 times.
Okay, seven times. Okay, well, I've only seen it once, but I enjoyed it very much. I thought that it was here's my first, genuinely, my first thought was, gee, it was entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of been lost a little bit
Mm.
that in all the discussions of
Well, I
all the
think there's
themes,
been,
etc. It's really entertaining.
yeah, I stopped reading stuff about it.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of avoided. I'd heard, yeah, you speak about it with people, and I'd read a little bit about it, and I felt like there's a bit of that you do want to hear and read about this movie because there are things that you probably don't see or understand the first time that you're
Mm,
like, oh, that's who that was, or that was what that was about, or whatever. But I do think that a lot of the debates that are taking place, or at least the more that I kept, because people, they have their first takes, then they have to come up with a different take, then they have to come up with a different take that's on top of this different take. And now I feel like people are just arguing about things that don't have anything to do with the movie.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
so I just like to take it back to my major feeling as I was watching it was I did not realize that this would just be so entertaining.
Yeah.
That it is like set piece, like it's one of those movies where you get to the end and you go, oh, there's like five or six. Like if someone went, what was your favorite bit? You could go, oh, well, what about when this happened, or when that, or when that? Like it just has a lot of, which I guess that is that like classic story of yeah, the Odyssey as well. It is the adventures of, you have to best these people, then this people, then these people, and this is what it is. But I think that for a movie, that worked really well, or at least the way
Mm,
that Nolan put it together in the movie worked so well of just that idea of this like, adventure after adventure after adventure after adventure, different paces. Like it wasn't all the same tone or pace, but it was
mm.
definitely felt like I was like, wow, this is just really from start to finish. I guess when you think of something being historical, you maybe think it's going to be slower or
Yeah.
less entertaining or less constantly propulsive or whatever it is that I feel like this movie is. But like really, like I just kept thinking, like, there was just times during the movie where I was just going, this is very entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and well, it's such a nice feeling as well. And I think specifically since Nolan's been working with Jennifer Lame in the film editor for the last three films, I think there's a new sophistication to the storytelling that he's been doing, where things are nestled within each other and they're flashing back and they're flashing forward, and it's not until you get to the end that you see the complete mosaic, and you suddenly realize this is the story they've been telling, and this is the reason why they've been telling it. And I always say, and I think this is a compliment, he's a populist. He wants as many people as possible to enjoy his films on whatever level they want to engage with it, and he and his team do their best to not leave anyone behind.
I have found it is one of those, and this is, about, I guess, I mean, I don't know, like, as I said to you, I haven't read the Odyssey. And so I don't have anything that I'm holding on to
Mm,
in regard to like it's meant to be like this or it was meant to be like this or whatever. But one of the things that I am glad it wasn't, and so I'm not making a take on this other than I'm personally glad that it wasn't this, is, oh, hang on, I'm low battery. I'm going to have to go and plug myself in. That's no good. Um, sorry, in this like service apartment that I'm staying in, there is no oh, hang on, let's see if I can get off the couch.
this
What
is,
with everything in my hands, this is quite a lot for me.
by the way,
Uh,
if you're only listening to the audio and not watching the video, it does feel like we're on one of the
oh,
boats in the Odyssey at the
oh
moment. Are you
boy,
okay?
yeah, this is moving all over the place. Hang on. There's nowhere in this little service apartment that I've been staying in Brisbane. Can I say this, by the way?
Yeah.
Like it is, I'm staying. So these shows have a lower budget, because obviously, normally when you're doing the shows, you're coming in for a couple of nights. Your cost of accommodation and whatever is like a lot lower if you don't have
Yeah.
to stay as many nights. You're doing 2 weeks of shows. You've got two choices. You either need to stay in a place that is not as good as where you normally stay,
Yep.
or and which is kind of what we have done. But also, then you have to stay in a place that if you want it to be half good, you just have to kind of make sure that it is in the worst area in all of Brisbane. And so that's that's what we've done. Like
Yeah.
I am in like the valley, but like in the part of the valley where the other night I saw someone being arrested by the cops for doing a drug deal, and they
And you said, Gary, what's happened?
and while it was happening, while it was happening, I saw another person do a drug deal because the cops were distracted. They were
Distracted.
using the distraction of somebody being arrested for a drug deal to do a drug deal. So that's the area of Brisbane that I've been in. And the other night, and I'm not, and I'm a little ashamed to say this, but this is a real thing that happened. There was someone sketchy coming up towards me when I was going back to, and it was like I was walking back after my show, and I was honestly a little bit scared. And
Oh,
I
wow.
and I did the Barnaby Joyce. I just yelled at an imaginary dog. I just like turned to my left and went, sit, and the person walked away. So I'm not saying
Uh,
that like he's a good person. He's a terrible person who's covering up horrible right-wing things. But that to use yelling at an imaginary dog sit down as a distraction doesn't work.
yeah. Yeah. You know what? Like, life's complicated. Sometimes you have to thank Barnaby.
Comes at you pretty quick. So the thing that I am glad that the movie didn't try to do,
Hmm.
at least from my viewing of the movie, which is it made a movie about now based on the Odyssey. It didn't feel like here's a historical recreation of when I heard that like one of the translators of the Odyssey didn't like what it was, I was like, oh yeah, fine. Because it's
Yeah.
not if you're someone who's really interested in the Odyssey
Yeah.
and the historical nature of the Odyssey and what the Odyssey is about, then someone taking that and then using that to tell a modern day story might not be your cup of tea. And I could totally understand why that might not be your cup
Yeah.
of tea because that's
Yeah.
not what you're into.
And that's
But
fair enough.
but that version of it probably wouldn't have been my cup of tea. I,
No.
I like that he took this ancient story to tell a very modern story, a story about our times using this like kind of ancient text, but it wasn't delivered. The accents, the action, the way that the story was told, it was clearly that this wasn't like I'm trying to recreate the idea of the historically accurate Odyssey. It
Mm.
was very much I'm taking this classical story and story structure and this ancient story and showing how it has a relevance to the society that we're currently living in. And I personally love that choice. That's what
Yeah.
I don't think I would have enjoyed as much the other version than this version.
I think the glory of war would have been tone deaf in our current climate, and I much prefer this take on where they want to, engage with these kinds of stories and I think that's why it is resonating, is because it is kind of a reflection of what's going on now. It's a story about a decent man forgetting his morals and having to reconnect with them. And I personally see the ending as potentially there's a bit of optimism because he learns his lessons and he gets back to being who he should be rather than forgetting who he was.
Well, but also I think there is that sense of like war can turn honorable people into terrible people.
Yes.
Like, I mean, there's one of the things that was most compelling to me was, when you think about the timeline of that story, which is Odysseus, like, when you first see these boys that are being signed up to go along with him, you're like, why is he taking boys with him? And then you're like, of course, this journey is going to take like so long that he needs them to be of fighting age to be ready to fight in this war once they are over there and whatever, right? That makes
Yeah.
sense. And then, of course, it's going to take their entire lives have been. So you took these innocent boys, you've taken them into this like war, for what turns out to be terrible reasons. Like
Yeah.
most wars, they aren't fought for the reasons that we're being told that they're fought for. They're fought for money and commerce and trade routes and all these other ulterior things. And that you've taken these young boys, that you have turned them into monsters, and then you are trying to get them home, or maybe you're not trying to get them home. Like there's two ways I really could like. I keep thinking about the movie could be read in that, like the idea that does Odysseus want to get his crew home safely, or is he almost ashamed to like take them back, the monsters that he's made them, the pigs that they have become, if you want to,
Yeah.
give it. I mean, I know that one of the bits that you enjoyed the most, well, that would stayed with you and most of them, is that Cersei
Yeah.
scene where she's like, put your disguises back on, or
Yeah,
back into your
back into
disguises.
disguises of men.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right. And I do think there is one way to read it where you're like, he can't bring these people back.
yeah.
Because none of them, like, he maybe could go back to something. There was something that he had beforehand, but some of these boys and men, they don't have anything to come back to, and they have been turned into completely different people to what they were. And it wasn't that they were, maybe I don't think that they were intrinsically pigs, but the idea that the world and the war and that the damage that these things do, the kind of damage that like going to war for no reason does to people, takes good people and turns them into monsters, or you know, then that I think there's something very like powerful in that as well.
Well, there's a key point to what you're saying, which unlocks that part of the storytelling, which is John Berthel as Millennius, when he reveals Helen's face and he's scarred her.
Yeah.
Like he's not a good man. He's
No.
awful. He's an awful human being. Like, and Telemachus learns from him about his father, but he also this is not a hero. He's a toxic man in his own right. So but also there is the men back home. I don't know, like I've seen this so many times, but one of my favorite small little features is every time you see Odysseus's hands, they're dirty and the nails are cracked and that. You look at Robert Pattinson's hands,
Mm.
they are beautiful. They are so manicured, they're so like those little touches of these people that there's the engagement with war being taken to it, and then there's the lack of engagement of knowing the ramifications of something and celebrating the song rather than the fact. That can also have an adverse effect on you.
Yeah, and I do think that there is that sense of, I mean, there's, look, I mean, I can imagine anyone who loves war would hate this, like, version of the story because it is so anti-war, like,
Yeah,
or at least anti, like, really points to the idea that most wars aren't fought for just causes,
yeah,
and that we never consider the horrible consequences that, I mean, we have this here in Australia at the moment where like some of our most decorated soldiers have been accused of the most hideous war crimes.
mm,
And it has divided our society because there are so many people who just think that anything is justified once you get to war, that, you know, your true, like if your true self is revealed, if your pig disguise, you know, comes off and you like, do the worst of the worst things, that, you should be allowed to do that. Then there's another argument that, absolutely you should be able to fight it in this. But then we rarely have this discussion about going, what are we sending these people to do? And are
mm,
we making sure that if we are going to send these people to reveal their true selves or be in situations where only their worst self, is necessary for survival or for victory or for whatever these things are, then what is our responsibility to them to bring them home or to look after them afterwards or to deal with the consequences of what we have created? And I do think that that is something that society is fucking terrible at
oh
recommending.
yeah. Well, look at the way the suitors treat anyone who was a veteran of the Trojan War, which is the language that's you might not like that it's modern language, but it's a deliberate choice, and that is extremely reflective of how we treat a lot of veterans today. It's they're either lionized all out of proportion, or they can just be left on the street and ignored.
Yeah, either way, we're not helping them properly.
No, no, not
Because
at
we
all.
can't, because we won't be realistic about what actually happens. And this revelation that Odysseus has about what it is that he did
Yeah,
and the way the world has fractured, and the idea that things, that when these norms are fractured, it is almost impossible to put them back together. And, in doing something that you think is absolutely justified, you yourself can become the enemy or the villain or the people that other people fear.
yeah,
you know, like the idea that, it was always that dialogue around 9/11, right? Which was like, what was America's role in this? And it was almost sacrilegious in some quarters to be able to even like bring that up. But
Yeah.
saying, if you're having all these wars in these places and creating yourself as the enemy, is this something that, not that anyone who was a victim of it deserved, but is
No.
it something that America has some culpability in creating in the first place? And these are such, I mean, they're difficult conversations to have at the best of time, but in these polarized times when nobody wants to come to an argument in good faith, I think that a movie like this, I mean, fucking good on him. Like,
Yeah.
good on him for just like making such a big, bold anti-war movie in these times.
Mm.
And you know what the funny thing about the whole like people getting mad at it for like, woke and all these other things is they they actually are missing the point of why they should be mad at it. Like, like I mean, he's made this very satirical, like like critical movie about people with like unimaginable powers who are using it for the wrong reasons and the horrible ramifications that can have, particularly in starting wars that aren't justified in a time when that is absolutely something that is going on in the world, and people are like getting hung up on the fact that it's too woke because they cast a black character. You're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you're like, nah. I reckon you're missing the bigger point of why you should be mad at this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. This is where he's having the attack.
Mm.
You're being confused.
Yeah. Oh
He's
yeah,
going,
no.
look at Elliot
Yeah.
Page over here. You're getting
Mm.
furious, but here's
Yeah.
the message that's seeping into your subconscious.
Yeah.
And by the way, Elliot Page is fucking brilliant. That scene in Hades is one of the most powerful scenes in the movie, I think.
Well, I mean, at the start, I mean, obviously, there's like Elliot Page's character at the
Sinon.
start. Looks like they might not be in the movie for very long. It turns
Yeah,
out they are much
yeah.
more in the movie, but
And really important too.
yeah. But at the start, I was like, "Oh, is this it? Is this what
Yeah.
people are mad about?"
Yeah.
Like, Elliot Page has got like one line in this movie,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "Oh, it's okay. No, it's fine, of course."
Yeah.
But yes, I absolutely agree. But also was so able to play that idea of the betrayed innocent character,
Yeah.
the one who didn't know, the one that needed to be clueless for the plot to really work. And I think just did such a great job with it, honestly.
Yeah, and for a movie where a lot of people know how the story plays out,
Mm.
I think a lesson that his brother can learn from Nolan is that sometimes you can answer questions without posing them,
Mm.
and the fact that. I don't know how you viewed it, but you can have multiple readings of Athena. This is how Athena is appearing. This is how Odysseus is seeing Athena, or this is Odysseus's PTSD manifesting because the implication is that the gods are so large and so unknowable. They only appear as thunder, and they only appear as a breeze, and they only appear as a child's smile. So you can read it in any way that you want. There's that moment where Sinon, before when Odysseus says, "Why did you volunteer?" and Sinon says, "Hey, when you see my dad, can you tell him, what I achieved? Feel free to add some stuff." So it's like, was there a Cyclops? Was there a Circe? Like, what's being added? We have
I
Travis
mean, I
Scott as the
think
singer.
feel free to add some stuff is like one of the best lines in the in movie. Firstly, it's
Yeah,
funny. Like
yeah,
when people say
yeah.
there's
It's
no
funny.
jokes in this, it's
No,
actually
there's
funny. Got a big
no.
laugh in the cinema. But
Yeah,
also, this is a myth. This isn't history.
yeah,
This is an ancient myth, and even within the world of the myth being told, there is this. I mean, I think it's very telling, and I'm not the first person to make this. It's the first thing you see in the movie in a time of apparent magic, right, or whatever
yes,
it says. And um, I think from the start, it's saying, we don't know if gods are real. There is all of the things that are in this movie could be explained without there being actual gods. Like they
yeah,
could all be explained by people's belief in the gods. Like we can have a statue of Athena. We can have a memory of Athena that could be a girl who's murdered in this thing. That could be Athena, could be somebody who represents Athena. He could just be seeing a vision of his own like brain that is like the last innocent person he saw murdered for something that he, like, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think your observation of eh, like, we don't need a neat answer.
no,
You've given us three or four possibilities of what it could be
yeah,
and the way that it could be read, and none of them really change the overall story.
Yeah.
Like, someone is visiting him that he is able to talk to and communicate to us or himself or whatever through these circumstances. And we are able to sort of see his guilt and his pain and whatever. And whether that is like he is seeing her because that is the manifestation of the goddess Athena who has come in this form and blah, 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 or he is seeing her because they was the one who had it doesn't really matter as much as the posing of the, like, well, just the fact that you go, well, you can read this in a couple of different directions that doesn't distract from the way the narrative moves forward.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really interesting culmination in the last. Like, there's this new era of Nolan. These last three films are a thematic trilogy where Tenet is about the ramifications of the future, Oppenheimer's the ramifications of the past, and weirdly, the Odyssey, the 3,000-year-old text, is the ramifications of the present.
Yeah, of
And
now.
yeah, and it's so fascinating that there's so much. He doesn't talk down to his audience either. Nolan and his team, they treat the audience with respect, and they know that the audience is smart and that they can engage with all of these big ideas. And there's so much to discuss, and I've loved watching people talking about what they experienced and what they thought and their interpretation. And then just now and again, also, he just gives you a really good moment where a bad guy realizes it's Odysseus and he cops an arrow in the neck.
Right.
Or,
And
that
also,
the priest, when the priest says, I've already hurt one man, and and he gets the sword, and you're like, let's fucking go. Or even the moment where he's with Leguizamo and he's like, he says, Odysseus is alive. And he says, is he going to bring vengeance? And he stops in that doorway and he says, bring it all. And you're like, let's fucking go.
yeah, I mean, it has that. I mean, it's not dissimilar to the Batman movies, honestly,
Yeah, yeah,
in a lot of ways, even to the point where you like that idea of, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain is so writ large,
yeah.
even in this
They're the
story. And
people
in
from the
fact,
sea.
right? It's
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
Like there's a moment on Taskmaster where one of like on the UK Taskmaster from one of the series where one of the contestants, even when the task had been played out, they've been trying to find these monsters. They couldn't find them when they were doing the task, but even watching the task back in the studio, they still couldn't work out like what was like. They literally were still so confused. And she just like it's still one of my favorite Taskmaster moments that Tamsin and I quote all the time to each other because she just went, "Are we the monsters?" But it just, I was like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we're the monsters, or at
yeah,
least we can be the monsters from someone that, from another person's perspectives, things that we think we're doing for justifiable reasons, or that we have the best intentions for, or maybe we don't have the best intentions for, which is something that obviously, is discussed, or other people, you might be acting with the best intentions while somebody above you or below you is not, or
yeah,
all the complications of it all. But that idea of like, yeah, I mean, the idea that they were the monsters from the sea was one of those things that to me, pretty early on, I was like,
yeah,
I reckon, are we the
yeah,
monsters? Yeah,
yeah,
I reckon
yeah,
you're the
yeah,
monsters. But
yeah.
even at the end, when it was still like, are we the monsters? Like, we're the monsters. And I was like, yeah, we
Yeah.
are the monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like Nolan, I think also appeals to us because he's so good at a callback. Like
Mm,
by the time you get to that final moment where he strings the bow, and
yeah.
Ludwig Göransson's music always kicks in with the plucking of it, and you've seen it a few times. By the time you get to the end, and when he plucks it, and you go, "Here's your warning, suitors."
Yeah.
Fucking retribution is coming.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about it being entertaining.
Yeah.
It still is a
Yeah.
John Wick movie. It's still a Batman
Yes.
movie. It's still like you still get that idea of here is this incredible epic story. I mean that moment when he shoots the Cyclops in the eye, I think is actually one of the ones where I was like, because that Cyclops scene is that whole part I thought was fantastic, like just
Unreal.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like to do so much with like so much but so little, like so much storytelling within like while dealing with a thing that can't really communicate to them. And then when he turns back and shoots it in the eye and you just think, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing?
Yeah.
And that was that moment where I was like, yeah, there is that thing of there is no perfect hero in this story, and
No.
you're certainly not.
No.
You will let your impulse, like, and despite the plucking and the, you're giving everybody a chance, you still, yeah, there is a part of you that is, there is a reason you were the leader of this army. There is a reason you were in charge of these killings, that you were able to inspire these men to do this thing. You can't just be, oh my God, I didn't believe that they would all just start slaughtering people once we got the horse into, you know, like that doesn't, you can't be that person either. That would have been a disingenuous reading of who this man is and what his impulses or instincts are. Like, I think that
Well,
moment when he turns around and he shoots the Cyclops in the eye, I'm like, okay, good. You
yeah.
acknowledge that this is a man who sometimes will make a very, very disastrous, terrible decision.
Yeah, I think the movie does a good job early on of showing that he is a man of morals who goes along with a war. Because it's the warning of the pig of
Mm.
all things, and then it's also, he stands up for the young Patterson character who's quite clearly trying to get out of going to
Yep.
war, but he doesn't want to embarrass the father, and he's trying to protect as many of those kids as he possibly can, and but war can corrupt you, and in the end he's just looking for a solution, and he's reminded of
Yeah.
like part of the best
There is
one of
also another part of it too, or that is also that staying home can corrupt you.
well, staying home
And
can
not
corrupt you
going
as
to
well, and
war
not
can
engaging.
also, right?
Yeah.
Because the movie also does make that point.
Yes.
The people who have stayed behind are not the heroes of this story either.
No, 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 no. They're the people of Gotham that have gotten
Mm.
fat after,
Yeah. Yeah.
Two-Face has been looked after. But the fact that you kind of get to this point with this character where he does lose himself, and I think the thing that he's flawed and he makes mistakes, but he learns and he reconciles, and the fact that you get to the end and he's not letting his
Mm.
son engage with any of it so he can protect him, which is kind of gets back to what he was trying to do with all the kids
Mm.
earlier on. So there's jumping on points. It's pretty remarkable. It might be my favorite Nolan film, because
Interesting.
I feel like it's hard to tell because you're kind of caught up in the
Yeah.
moment, but it's you're sitting there and you're going, oh look, that's Dunkirk, oh that's Batman
Mm.
Begins, oh that's Interstellar, like that's there's all it feels like a real summation of where he started to where he is now.
I mean, I do think it's impressive that he's still making. I mean, I don't think it would be my favorite, but I think it's still impressive that he's making things of this scale, like that. The like even that idea that maybe Oppenheimer, when he's like won all the awards, that was the one thing that kind of he'd had all the box office
Mm,
success, he'd had all this credibility, whatever, but he hadn't quite like necessarily won the awards in the way that Oppenheimer did.
mm.
But maybe then you don't continue that drive to do something even more ambitious. I mean,
Yeah,
this is super ambitious.
it's
The
crazy.
idea that he was like, can I do what I did with Batman Begins? Like, with the Dark Knight trilogy, can I do that with the Odyssey? Can I just make like a movie that is kind of pitched almost to the same audience,
Mm,
but
yeah.
like with different, subject matter, different story, but story that has similar themes? I liked it a lot, and it certainly is, and as it seems to be happening as well, it is a movie to see at the movies. Like, I
Yes.
know that he made it to be seen in IMAX, and you can't get a ticket to IMAX theaters in Australia for months, which is incredible.
Like,
I
it's
love
wild.
what a incredible thing to even be able to say that there are like that you can't get a ticket to a movie cinema. That's not
Yeah.
even a thing that we thought was a sentence that you were even ever going to be able to say again a few
Yeah.
months ago. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago that we were like, there will never be a full movie cinema ever again.
Yeah. But it's I know some people kind of push back on Nolan because they say he's such a masculine movie
Mm.
storyteller. But my argument always is we don't need to live in a world where we don't have masculine storytellers. We need
No,
to live in a world where we have good masculine
I
storytellers,
would agree
like
with that.
like
Like,
Ryan
there's
Coogler and
mate, there's
Nolan.
masculine storytellers all the fucking time, but they're
Yeah,
terrible.
but
Let's
they're bad
let us
people.
have a good one
So let's
with good
celebrate the good
values and
one.
good morals.
Who brings out the best in the performances. Like, I
Yes.
think Anne Hathaway is fucking brilliant in this film. I think she just delivers some of those lines with such pitch perfect range.
Well, she
Um,
does such a great job, I think, of early on. You do kind of get the sense of, okay, she's someone who's like clearly been trying to stall as long as she can possibly stall for this love of her life, but she also is not naive enough to understand that there is a point where maybe there might have to be a different direction, right? Like,
yeah.
this is coming to a point where like things are, and that she might have to compromise her life or her integrity and all these sort of things. And she plays all that so note perfectly because you
Mm,
get a bit fooled by her at the start in the
mm,
same way because she's trying to fool these suitors that there is a
mm.
possibility that that she might, and then you kind of come to realize that maybe there was never a possibility, and that what you were doing as an audience was seeing the act that she was putting on for the suitors to keep them out of the way. And I think she does an incredible job with that, honestly. I thought she was fantastic.
Oh yeah, and even having her maid do the dirty on her is that feels like a statement as well. Like we often hear about the sisterhood, and sometimes some of the worst things I've ever heard said about women are from other women. Like it's when the world is corrupt, it comes at you from all angles.
Oh yeah, I think this is part of and that the suitor is like the suitor doesn't have any interest in being with the maid. Like,
No,
Pattinson's character doesn't want to be with the maid.
no,
Like he's using the maid
yeah.
to get to what he actually wants as well. So she is both the victim and the villain, the maid, in this scenario as well, because she's also being manipulated by this terrible person.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a little bit of pushback on Tom Holland not being very good in this film, and I think people are missing the point to the character, which is the character is reactive, and I
Mm.
actually think Tom Holland underplays it. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I think even in some directors that I really love, like I love Steven Spielberg, but
Mm.
if Spielberg had made this movie, the scene where the father and son, well, he realizes that Odysseus is his father, the music would have swelled, and I think there would have
Mm.
been tears, and I think there would have been a hug. But instead, it's all language and it's very still. And the way that Odysseus says, when he finally meets his beautiful son, he'll be proud. And the way he looks at him and just says very casually, welcome home. Mild pause, stranger, and then they walk
Mhm.
in. Like
Mhm.
it's under in a
Mhm.
bombastic film. There's a lot
Yeah.
of underplaying of the acting.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually I didn't have any problem with Tom Holland
I thought he
at
was great.
all.
Thought
I
he
thought he
was
was
great.
fantastic. What are people's
Yep.
criticisms of him in this movie?
Oh, they're like, he can't hold a light to Anne Hathaway. It's like, yeah, but his
Yeah,
character
but
is
also that's the
young.
point of the character.
That's the point of the
Yeah.
character.
Her
And
whole thing is that she is this like woman who is incredibly in control of a situation where there are all these men, these horrible men who want what she has, and she is trying to control them with any amount of power that she has in this universe, which is not a lot for women, it turns out, like, or at
yeah,
least where she is, right? And she's
yeah,
doing everything she can. And she has a son who is not ready. This is the whole plot of the movie. If
yeah,
he were ready, if he could hold a candle
yeah.
as a person or a character or a personality to have the throne as his own, then a lot of the fuss that's happening wouldn't be a
It
problem,
wouldn't be
right?
happening.
The
Yeah.
character needs to be someone who is trying, desperate to establish their place in that world, and yet you feel isn't ready to do so. Because if you felt like they were ready to do so, why do you even need Odysseus to come back?
Yeah, and I think his physicality is underrated because when he leaves Ithaca, he leaves a boy, but when he walks back in
Yeah.
after Odysseus says, walk in as a prince, he
Mhm.
walks in physically different, and the way he delivers his lines is different. And, no, I
I'll
think
tell
it's
you
a
what,
better
he
film.
is physically different, by the way, as well. Like he fills out that Spider-Man suit a little more than he used to.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
Spider-Man's been working out.
Yeah, it turns out being on set for one of these films really is good for your health. Well, I'm glad you
All
enjoyed
right.
it because I know it's not necessarily your genre of film.
No, I liked it though. I actually
Yeah,
really did enjoy it. I was super entertained by it, and yeah, I thought it had like it was beautiful to watch.
mm,
It's so entertaining. Like I think that's. I mean, I keep coming back to that, but it
yeah,
really was my major takeaway. Was I did not expect it to be as like because you talk about themes, you talk about war, you talk about this is what this is trying to say, you talk about the Odyssey. There's all this debate around the casting and everything else that has to do with the movie. but I mean, it'd make a great roller coaster, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
really
if you're
would.
on the
Yeah,
Odyssey roller coaster and it was going through the different worlds,
yeah,
like if you had Odyssey World, if Disneyland opened Odyssey World, you know, and there were all these places that you could go to, here you are with the blah blah blah, and now you're going past the sirens and etc. and etc. etc. Like, I just think that those things are. It's a great adventure story. It's obviously great base material to, but it was relentlessly entertaining, I think.
yeah, yeah. And
I mean,
uh,
even to the point where, like you said, that final battle scene does have that real sense of the Princess Bride. I am not left-handed. Oh
yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah,
nobody can do this but Odysseus.
yeah. And it's great, and you know the sticking of the lot in the mouth and telling Sinon, "I've given you back your shame." It's like great. This
Yeah,
is, as you said, the exclamation point on everything. This is what I've been waiting for, and you have delivered it in spades.
yeah.
I should let you go because for people who aren't watching this on video, they will not know that you have done not only a remarkable job of moving from where you were, but
Uh,
you have been standing for the last half hour.
I have been standing because there was no. That's because if there'd been somewhere to sit and do this, that's where I would have started. But in this apartment, there wasn't. And then I ran out of batteries. And then I came into the bedroom and plugged it in. And I was under a air conditioner.
Air
I had to
conditioner,
turn that
turn
off
it
at
off.
some stage. And then, and then, and then I've just stood under the air conditioner for the rest of it.
I'm so glad. I do hate to have found out, in 24 hours you had a head cold from being
Mm.
underneath the air conditioner.
Well, what happened
Uh,
to Will? He's got Legionnaire's disease.
yeah. What a way. Hey, you still have, this is going up on Tuesday and you have
Five
gigs in
more shows.
Canberra.
Five more shows in Canberra. This is the end of the tour. It started in January 2025. I will have done 131 different shows so far. There's 132 tonight, and then five more after that in Canberra. So Wednesday through Sunday this week in Canberra. It's 90% sold. I don't know where that falls. Like, I don't know if there's like particular nights that have the tickets available or not. I imagine the weekends are probably normally the ones that are all gone. So Wednesday, Thursday, probably, I'm guessing. But yeah, there's only a small amount of tickets left, but there is some tickets that are still available. And these are my last shows for who knows how long. So please come out and be part of it. It would be great.
Yes. To all our friends in Canberra, head to comedy.com.au and you will be able to find all of the details there. I will let you go because this has been an odyssey for you and now you can sit down.
Thank you, mate. All right.
Thank you to Wil Anderson for joining me today. Another great chat with Ando. And for everyone in Canberra, make certain you keep an eye out for his shows this week, his final shows for a little bit. So if you are thinking that you might like to go along, I would err on the side of going because who knows when you will get your next opportunity to check him out live and in full swing. On Thursday, Tegan Higginbotham returns to the podcast. We are going to be discussing her first trial show for her new stand-up piece that she has created. I've watched the trial show and it is excellent. As I said to her on the phone, if she had to open the next day, she could very much do so. So we're going to discuss where she's at with that. How she's putting it together, what she learnt from this latest performance, where she's hoping to go next, and I'm really looking forward to digging into the writing process and what she's going to do about a director and stuff like that. So that will be coming out on Thursday, and then next Tuesday, Mulk will be back, and we will be discussing television and the things that we've been watching and the things that are coming up. Ted Lasso comes out this week, so I'm sure we'll be discussing that. That'll be an interesting one to see where that lands, don't you think? That'll be very interesting. I have some Ted Lasso thoughts before this new season begins, so we'll discuss that next week. So plenty to keep an ear and an eye out for. Over at Patreon, you'll be able to access Adam, Richard and I are going to be recording on Wednesday night about the new Spider-Man movie. So that will be over at Patreon, where you can also hear our 1 hour and 40 minute deep dive into the Odyssey. So there's some pretty good Patreon only episodes over there. So if that feels like it will be something that you're into, please go and check that out. As always, you can find all of these links at my website, justinhamilton.com.au. Head over there, click on the word stuff, and that's where you can find Substack. That's where you can find Patreon. That's where you can find links to my YouTube page where you can watch this as a video cast, or you can watch some of my stand-up shows. There's a whole lot of stuff over there. And so, I'd love you to go and check it out. People have been asking me, where's the best place to find me online? Justin Hamilton Comedian at Instagram is the main social media site that I seem to be frequenting. You can see some clips from previous episodes of this podcast. The Dave Anthony ones are going gangbusters, especially our latest one on the TV show Sugar. A lot of you had some serious thoughts on that TV series, and you were correct to do so. So I really appreciate everyone who wrote to me, who either love it or hate it. But we all agreed that it is batshit crazy. Ah, dear. All right. I hope you're well. I hope you're looking after yourself. And I hope you've experienced something recently that was inspiring or exciting or, just at the very least made you laugh. So I'll be back on Thursday. So I'll see you then. Until then.